Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. We will be coming to you any second now with Chick Mission. And I think it's going to be Amanda, but maybe also Tracy with crossed fingers. I'm sure many of you know Chick Mission. I found out about them a couple years ago when I started building out the Brilliantly Resource Guide, but just connected with them recently and think they're totally amazing and can't wait to have them fill you in more on what they've been up to and their mission and why they started it. Oh, you're already here. Amazing. Hi, Alfonso. I see that you're here. Let's see. Chick mission. Hopefully that works. Yes. Hello. It's so good to see you.
It's so good to see you.
Happy Friday.
Oh, I know. I'm like, this day snuck up on me this week, but thrilled that it's here.
Me too. We're having a real COVID moment in our house. Like, I felt for weeks like everything seemed cool. We planned some family stuff for over the weekend, and then it's like we've seen a number of people who've all had COVID. My son's school is canceled. So I'm just sitting here like fingers crossed, hoping for all negative results for us.
Oh man. Well, I know, just when we thought we were sort of getting out of it, but can't take any moment for granted. Any help.
No, totally, for sure. Well, I'm super excited to talk with you. I think it was only like a month or two ago that we connected for the first time, but you guys have obviously been on my radar for a long time, and I'm excited to have you kind of share the origin story of Chick Mission and, share some stories, how it started, who you've helped.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of my most favorite topics because it's, as somebody who went through surgery and was trying to prevent, something from affecting their lives long term, you have to make a lot of tough decisions. And, I'm not sure, and I'd love to hear more about your journey itself, but these decisions happen rather quickly, and especially when you're sitting in that chair and getting told you have cancer, there are things that you need to do. If you have time to do them, that even though it's costly, it's really recommended. So one of those things is fertility preservation and understanding. I don't know about you, but for me, it was health class back in 5th or 6th grade, and they separated the boys and the girls, and they basically told you, do not get pregnant, and here are ways not to get pregnant. And there was very little education about you're born with every single egg you'll ever have. These eggs are really special. Like, this is what they will create one day, and this is how. There was none of that.
No.
Or a little bit of a scare tactic. And so when you're sitting in a seat after having a symptom, mine was blood coming out of my left nipple. And I just felt kind of gross about it and didn't quite know what was happening with my body. And so I did go to the doctor and get checked out and made sure that I did all the things that people were recommending, which luckily I pushed for a mammogram, even though I was in my 30s, and found cancer. And so you're told you have cancer, and then they have to rush into treatment. But one of the things that going in, or hopefully is that treatment will affect the quality and quantity of your eggs. So it's very, very important, and all the governing bodies of cancer and reproduction are telling you have to freeze your eggs before treatment if you have not. And my dog agrees.
Yeah.
But you need to come up with the money to do it. You need to come up with the time. You need to make that a priority, even though you're scared to death. And so what we've done at the Chick Mission is really talk about this. Let's get the word out that treatment will potentially lead to infertility. And it's not your traditional way of just chemotherapy. There are a lot of other things that go on, whether you have radiation to your reproductive organs, that would affect the quality of your eggs. Systemic chemotherapy, long-term drug therapy. As a woman who was diagnosed in her mid-30s, hey, if I have to be on an anti-estrogen pill for 10 years,
Yeah,
I have to figure out what's next. What do I do? And so I luckily had some savings and was able to reach into, my rainy day fund and cover the cost of egg freezing. But there's just too many people who can't come up with that and don't make it a priority. And so that's what the Chick Mission is all about. Let's talk about it. Let's find out creative ways to cover the costs, and let's make some permanent change with legislative efforts.
Yeah, totally. I think you're completely right about my middle school sex education experience. And I think that's like a symptom of our age. And I hope that it is getting better for younger generations and that they do talk about all of the other parts of it. I think we were also told, like, you can do it all. And it's like, well, sure, but we need somebody to help us plan and understand the order of what that means and those implications, even aside from illness. But yeah, the awareness part I think is hard. I actually was sitting with a friend last night who got diagnosed yesterday with cancer, and same thing. She had leakage from her nipple, and she's had her children, but so we weren't talking about fertility, but she was like, there's so much information coming at me and I like can't hear it. And I think it's so great that there are organizations like yours that when you leave the doctor's appointment and you're looking for stuff online, that you can find like, okay, here's where I can read about like this specifically, because when you're in those appointments, it's just like a whirlwind.
It's completely a whirlwind. And as soon as I'm sort of the go-to for anybody who's diagnosed, a friend, a friend of a friend, a friend of a friend of a friend now,
I'm sure.
probably talk to at least 2 or 3 people a week.
Yeah.
Been diagnosed. And I always say, you bring a family member with you, they're only hearing half of what the doctor says. You're hearing a third. And so I constantly, and I don't know if this is actually, you're able to do this or not, but I said, record all of your meetings.
Yeah.
Because it's a new language and you don't have it down yet. And they're so used to speaking in this language, it's their language. And so you need to take the time to re-listen to what they just told you. Let that sink in.
Absolutely. And I think it's been especially hard during COVID for people who can't bring a person, and that either like the FaceTime or the recording has been essential. And I think that you're right that some doctors don't like when you record it, but I'm hopeful that post-COVID, or I guess still mid-COVID, that people are a little bit more lenient about that, because if somebody says something to you that's triggering right before they start talking about fertility, you might not even hear that they said it.
And you have to repeat things. I mean, that's the only way you kind of let them sink in. I didn't know the difference between chemo and radiation before I started this whole journey. I'd never broken a bone. The only surgery I ever had was wisdom teeth. So,
Wow.
And doctors know everything, right?
Yeah, or we like to believe that they do, right?
People think that they know it all, but you are the doctor of your body. Your body speaks to you, and mine did. Luckily, all 3 times I was diagnosed, I found it myself because my body was doing something different, and I listened and I asked the doctor to help and figure it out.
That's such a good way to put it, that you're the doctor of your own body. Yeah. And how, we talk about knowing you're normal and feel it on the first and all of those things, but it really is like everybody's body is a little bit different, but you're the person who knows your own body the best.
Yeah. And whether it's, I found my melanoma, it was a new colored spot arm. So my spots were, and this was a black dot. And I went to my dermatologist and said, hey, this just popped in out of nowhere. And his first reaction was, oh, I'm sure it's nothing, but let me biopsy it. And sure enough, it was something. So.
Wow. Good for you that you're so diligent. I would love to talk about what is the average cost of fertility treatment? I obviously, like, we're here online, we're observing lots of people in the community going through it and talking about it, which is such a service that more people kind of share that experience. But, you probably have the numbers memorized. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, so for when I'm going through it, it depends. So there's some flat fees involved, but then medication is sort of the bogey. So if they have to stimulate you more than normal, they give you for medication $3,000 to $6,000. So all in, my fertility preservation costs about $20,000 per cycle.
Wow.
And that's a lot of money to come up with on the fly. There are some discounted programs out there, but even if it's 25% discount, that's still a whole lot of money to work with. What I am, there are a few proud of the Chick mission, but one of them is we've been able to get the cost down for our grants to $65.
Oh, awesome.
So we have some phenomenal fertility partners that basically cut it to the bare minimum, basically covering the costs, but they make no profit on this. And they're doing it because they're good human beings who understand this is a crucial step.
Yeah, you brought up legislation, and I was going to ask, now insurance companies are required to cover the cost of reconstruction, but are they not required to cover fertility treatment for young women?
No, they, I love that you bring that up because that's sort of my parallel. That's where we were 30 years ago when reconstruction after a mastectomy was not covered. And fertility preservation, because infertility is a side effect of cancer, just like, nausea, and they cover the medication for that. And so they should be covering it. We are affecting change at the state level. But we're one organization with lots of incredible followers, but I think that's why, let's keep moving on this. We helped change the law in New York State. And so but it's insurance. So you have to understand there's all these little nuances. So in New York State, if you work for a company, insurance plan is based in New York State. So the plan itself has to be based in New York. And then you have to be a certain size company, and then you're required to cover it as a United Healthcare or an Aetna. But if you work for a smaller company, or you are unemployed and you have Medicaid, or you are, who knows, there's lots of loopholes, unfortunately, but we are working state by state, and then we will work on a bill at the federal level to change this. And let's put this, sort of issue and this topic to rest once and for all. Our goal is to be out of business because every single state and the federal level changes, and then we can focus on something else for women's health.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's going to be a life's work, and it's so amazing that you guys have dedicated your time and energy to it because it's so critical. Um, there's a lot of companies coming up in the women's health space that do all kinds of things. And when I first started Brilliantly, I heard this woman pitch, and it was about fertility, and she was trying to work with payers and insurance companies and get more companies to cover it. And that was like, I'm in Rhode Island, and so she was primarily working in like Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New England. And it was just really sobering to hear how many people get to make that decision that aren't the woman, because some people, they don't want that. It's like, it's just crazy how those decisions get made and who gets to have a say in them. Um, but I am really hopeful about the future. There's so many people like you working to make women's health better and easier and more affordable.
Yeah, and it's about collaborating. There's great organizations out there that have been chipping away at this for quite some time. And for us, we just wanted to be sort of that triple threat organization that you can come to for a grant, for educational purposes, or to use your story to share with a legislator to get them to support the bill, right? Our stories are the most important thing that we can use to make permanent change.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a little note that somebody just popped in that Massachusetts Blue Cross Blue Shield covers freezing costs and Rhode Island doesn't. Yeah, it's like it just doesn't make that much sense. Thank you for putting that in there. I'm going to look that up. I would love to know. So on your platform, and maybe I've missed this because I've looked at your website a number of times, you can share your story in a way that it gets shared with like your state legislature. Is that true?
So at certain times, we will roll out a link on our website to different states that are in flux. So last year, there was a bill introduced in Texas. So I'm coming to you from Austin, Texas today and working on a bill here. But Texas is only in session every other year. It's the only in the country that has every other year. So we're going to be back at it. Right now, we a link to Oklahoma because there's an active bill. And so we try to kind of, we'll do a call to action with everybody that, signs up for our website information. And that's where we share about, different benefits we host. We host some really fun stuff around the country. But we also want to send it out to our followers to say, hey, do you have any friends in Oklahoma or Texas that would be willing to share this with their networks? Because it takes less than 2 minutes to fill this out. And we have luckily our executive director is a phenomenal writer and writes, it's equally informative and snarky. And so it really gets attention. And you can adjust it, but it's just a template, but it's a really well-written one.
Oh, so. Awesome. I'm going to check it out and I'm going to share it because I know we have some Oklahoma people who are followers and Brilliantly Warm users too.
Yeah.
I think this make humanizing all of these things that are either like principles or issues or just ideas for, if you're someone who is working in state government and you've never had this experience, you just don't know. And
I had great benefits when I was diagnosed the first time. And so I was diagnosed and mastectomy was in the cards and then also chemo and radiation. And then I got a second opinion. And so the first time around, I had to do chemotherapy. And so I said, oh, okay, well, I don't really worry about this fertility part. Even though I was getting older and was going on long-term medication, I just assumed because I didn't have fertility benefits that's why it wasn't covered. And then when I got diagnosed with breast again, kind of later in my 30s, I did have fertility benefits. But my employer, the main guy, I worked for a small firm, and his wife had trouble conceiving, so he added fertility benefits after that, like a kind human being does. And they told me I didn't qualify because I wasn't infertile yet. And so not infertile yet. So that was the spark. That was what really led to the Chick Mission being created. And luckily for me, I have a phenomenal group of supporters that jumped right in to start this with me.
That's awesome. I can't get over that. Like it's so telling about our healthcare system and that we would rather treat something than prevent it. Like you see that over and over and over again. And I have talked about it quite a bit. Like I had a preventative mastectomy, and I was on payment plans, 6 different payment plans for almost a decade. Like, it was an astonishing amount of money. And I was like, this is a ton of money, but it's like 1/20th of what it would cost if I got diagnosed. It's crazy.
Yeah. It just doesn't make sense, but it is a broken system. People, it's the same with you having a pre-existing condition. Like there's just so many things that are wrong because they think United Healthcare thinks that you'll go to Blue Cross and then they'll have to deal with it. And so it's just kicking the can. And from a fiscally responsible perspective, like that's why the system is so overrun, because you don't do anything proactive and does cause the cost to rise exponentially. So that's what I always try to explain to politicians that I speak with. We are bankrupting the system by not being proactive, not by covering, 89,000 young adults get diagnosed with cancer every year. That is a drop in the bucket. And odds are half of them are women. So with men, freezing your sperm is quite simple and very inexpensive. It doesn't mean it still shouldn't be covered by insurance. It absolutely should. But women, it's invasive and it takes 2 weeks and it's thousands of dollars, and you are born with every cell. They don't regenerate. With sperm, it regenerates. So in most cases, but I think it should be covered for all. Our grants only cover women because of just the sheer cost differential.
Yeah. And if you're someone who wants to apply, I assume that is a part of the website and that it's really user friendly. So if, somebody reaches out after they see this IG Live, what is the best way for me to direct them to you?
The best way is to send an inquiry on our website. We don't have our application live on the website. because what we've decided to do as an organization is really, there's a lot of redundancy that happens. So if we were to screen you, then your fertility specialist would screen you in the same. So they'd make sure there's no complications. They talk to your oncologist. We decided to take the red tape out on our end. And because of HIPAA and everything else, we have, nearly 40 productive endocrinologists that we work with across the country. So almost 40 practices in 6 states. So if you live in one of those states, first and foremost, find out where you are, what your prognosis and the recommended treatment are. And we'll say, okay, if you happen to be in New York City, we have 6 different partners. Here's the list of choose. All of them have agreed to waive the initial consult fee. Then they will help you fill out the application. The fertility specialists, they have a person that's dedicated in their office to communicate with us, so you can remain anonymous. We don't need to know who you are. It matters to us, obviously, what you're going through, but you don't have to tell us like every about your life. You are an applicant. It's a 1-page form, and they submit it, and we tell you within 24 to 48 hours whether you're approved and up to what amount. And for the most part, every practice is different what they charge because their overhead costs and location and all that stuff is different. But we tell you as soon as we possibly can. And they are need-based, so it's a certain adjusted gross income level, but we're pretty generous.
That's awesome. And like, what a smart way to do it. I'm sure that was like complicated to figure out, like you say, it's like, oh, that's simple, but like, it's totally, I'm sure was not simple to set up.
We want our donor dollars to go towards the grants themselves, not overhead costs.
Right.
So, I hate waste, and I respect every dollar that somebody is willing to donate to us. And I want to make it go so far.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, thank you so much for the work that you do. And I'm totally going to share out about Oklahoma. And I think I'm on your mailing list already, but I would love to be, anytime you're looking for women in a specific state, I would love to share it out in my newsletter too, because I think our fertility health is something that we're all going to have to be linked up arm in arm, working at on every level, unfortunately, like for a very long time.
And I've got lots of ideas of people that I hope you've met already, but people that I'd like you to meet, within our little community of cancer and preventative. And, there's so many people in our club, but, we're going to all try to leave this world a better place and help those that come after us, deal with the new life after cancer or preventing cancer, which is very brave.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I think I feel lucky every day that I had a choice that my mother didn't. And I hope that it's a choice that my daughter never has to make, and that all of the people like us who've gone through different experiences are really trying to make the future different for women. And I think that's the best, most important thing any of us can do.
I agree completely. So,
well, thank you so much for the time today. And we'll be sharing out about you guys and your mission, and looking forward to staying in touch and all of the different synergies.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Have a great day. Happy weekend.
You too.
Bye-bye.